Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Bama in NCAA 2004. And we have a contract extension after the first season. The AD has already seen more than enough from Sick Naben to at least extend this madness through another couple seasons. The prestige is the same. Our record against our rivals was great. Our record against top 25, I guess, for a first-year head coach isn't bad. And overall, a 9-6 season is pretty good. So they want us to win the SEC within the contract. That was one of the goals. So I guess that's something that we have to, try and do. We almost did it this year, surprisingly. I didn't think we'd get anywhere close with this team, but we actually did manage to make it to the championship game. So that is, something to be happy about. Iowa State. Elastico in a bowl game. That's interesting. Has that ever happened before? Have we ever had Elastico in a bowl game? I'm not sure. So looking around here, maybe pay attention to some of the other conference rivals in bowl games. Arkansas makes it to a bowl and they beat Purdue. That's nice. Ole Miss wins a game in OT against Florida State. Nice as well. Just shows how tough our conference is if we even want to win it. And then Tennessee goes and loses it. But Washington State and Miami play in the national title. Miami, of course, wins it. They always win the first one or two whenever you play NCAA04. Maybe Kansas State or Ohio State does. It's typically like those three teams or so. And then you'll have like a random one like Washington State kind of sneak in there. So looking over the stats for the year now, our quarterback had a pretty decent season. He threw for 3,400 yards and 28 touchdowns. 14 picks isn't great, along with a 58% completion percentage. Is really not that great, but it was decent enough to get the offense moving a bit here. Our running back, number 21, rushed for over 1,000 yards, which is great too. And then we had almost two receivers reach 1,000 yards, but one of those receivers had 1,200 yards, so I guess it balances out. And the 10 and 11 touchdowns apiece is nice as well. Of course, our left guard putting up amazing All-American numbers, just like he did the prior season heading into our first season. So one of the best pieces on our offense, underrated. Our right outside linebacker leads in tackles, defensive tackle, and right end lead in TFLs, with a couple more guys all in that double-digit range. Nice to see. That same defensive tackle also leads in sacks, and then our strong safety, leads in picks with 6. That's twice as many as the next closest person. And then our kicker doesn't have a great season, but he didn't really get a lot of usage, so that 76% is pretty low, but he only attempted 13 field goals, so I guess you can't be super mad about that. I don't know. But then we're going to try and cherry pick some stats here out of the stat rankings, and I just said screw it. I was going to try, but I said screw it. I hate going through the stat rankings. They never accurately reflect because of the sim stuff and just how the game works. So we're going to look at All-Americans now and see if there's anyone that made it. We should at least have, I would say, one or two players should at least get there. I think one of our receivers probably could have fought to be an All-American, maybe a second team. Obviously, our left guard is going to be an All-American. I thought maybe at a first team, but he did not get the looks for first team. But some of these guys from some of these teams, man, I have a hard time believing that they did any better than guys on our team. But I guess that is what they're trying to tell us. Like, looking over these receivers here, like that receiver for South Carolina had 700 yards, man. And you mean to tell me that number 2 on our team didn't have a better season? I refuse to believe that. I refuse to believe that. But we do get our left guard. He is a second team All-American, so he was an American in his final 2 seasons here with the Crimson Tide. But going through the rest of the second team All-Americans, it doesn't look like we're going to get any other looks outside of our left guard. I think that's a snub, man. I think we had a couple spots on the team. Maybe you could have made the argument, but I guess they weren't having it. They certainly were not having it. So that is how the All-American results go. And now we are going to look through the standings here. Just take a look at how the SEC laid out, how it finished, how everything kind of laid out. So we did, of course, win the west side of the SEC. Ole Miss finished with the better overall record, but we did beat them in conference play and played an extra conference game because of the SEC championship game. So we do finish better off than Ole Miss did. We were 6-2 going into the championship game. So and then Georgia, of course, wins the East. But here's the overall landscape of the SEC. Tennessee ultimately finishes above us in the SEC. We finished 3rd. And then Ole Miss behind us with Arkansas in tow. And then after Arkansas, it's pretty much just a steep fall off into the 500 purgatory. And there's a lot of teams at 500. Florida, LSU, Kentucky, Auburn, all sit around that 500 mark, and then Mississippi State, Vanderbilt, and South Carolina are rounding out the caboose, but still at 4-8. It's better than some conferences. I know the Big Ten has at least one or two teams that only win a couple games every year. Probably same with the Big 12 and so on. But here are the rankings. Miami, of course, finishes at the top. Oklahoma at number 2. And we're going to flip between media and coaches because we're still ranked in the media poll, but just not the coaches poll. And I think the game bases off the coaches poll and not the media. So Washington State is at 4, Ohio State at 5, Notre Dame at 6, Virginia Tech at 7, and Maryland at 8. Michigan rounds out the top 10 with Nebraska, and then Colorado State, UCLA, and Georgia. So we finally have the SEC winner at 13 after losing their bowl game. Texas, USC, Tennessee, Wisconsin, Ole Miss, and Washington, along with Southern Miss, round out at the top 20. And then Cincinnati and Arkansas and Oregon State all sneak in at 21, 22, and 23 after not being ranked. We drop to 24, and then Boise State sneaks in after not being ranked as well. And so looking here at the coaches poll, everything is mostly about the same here. There might be a couple spots that are a little bit different. Michigan at 11 instead of 9. That's another one. Georgia was 11th, not 10th before losing. Southern Miss here inside the top 20. Boise State here at 24, Cincinnati at 23, and Wake Forest at 25, and we are not even ranked in the coaches poll. So again, the number correlates to the coaches poll, so I'm guessing that's what the game uses. They don't use the media poll, which I think is inaccurate to real life, right? Because they would probably use the media poll or the AP poll more specifically. But either way, it doesn't really matter. So we don't finish ranked, I guess, in one of the two polls. I don't think I've ever had that happen in this game. But now we're going to get into the offseason shenanigans. We're losing a ton of guys. So, of course, our running back is leaving. The best player, probably statistically on our offense, is leaving. We're losing pretty much all of our receiving core, which we knew in the first episode of this. We're losing a lot of pieces on our line, a lot of pieces of our defense as well. Really, a lot of depth pieces of our defense is what we're losing. Some DBs and linebackers, so we're gonna have to reload quite a bit on the depth side of our defense, and then our offense is pretty much gonna have to be not entirely rebuilt because we still have our quarterbacks. But ultimately, we're going to have to rebuild our receiving core for sure, at the very least. So here is the results of our recruiting. And man, I was surprised we had access to so many blue chip prospects. I thought it would at least be another season, like year one, before we could really start getting a lot of 5-stars. But no, man, we loaded our class full of 5-stars. It's an amazing recruiting class, probably the best first-year recruiting I've ever done in NCAA. Because outside of all the 5-stars, dude, we loaded it with 4-stars too. We have a ton of 4-stars also in this recruiting class. We have just a bunch of prospects that are really enticing. And a lot of these 2 and 1-stars were just kind of the recruiting assistants that they just forced me to take. But we come in here looking at the top classes. We had the second best class. We had the most recruits amongst this top 5 here, but we had the second top recruiting class in the country behind Ohio State. That's good company to be in. Sandwiched between them and Michigan, Oklahoma, Maryland, and UCLA are next here. Georgia, the SEC winner, comes in at 8th, so we do out-recruit them. Another conference opponent in Tennessee here at 11th. Not seeing too many more, though, as we get further and further just outside of the top 20. New Mexico inside the top 20. Interesting. Southern Miss continuing their pace. Good for them. Good for them. Outside of the top 20 here, you got Notre Dame, Louisville, USC, and then Marshall rounds out 25. So not a ton of SEC teams there. We had Tennessee and Georgia kind of to focus on and worry about, and maybe some more along the way. But here is the results of our training. The team's going to get a little bit better. In the Northwestern Dynasty, I'd really use these off-season videos to kind of lay out the plan, I guess, for the following season, or just how I thought the team was going to develop. And I think we have one really good year with a lot of the core, a lot of the first-year core. I think we have probably another year with a lot of those guys to really try and do what we did last year, maybe accomplish it. And then in year 3, it's really going to be a lot of me. It's going to be a lot of our team that we've recruited and built. So as you can see, we did recruit a quarterback, but number 12 is up to a 90. We have a new starting running back, of course. We'll wait for the depth chart, and then we'll go through the whole depth chart. Try and go through that. But ultimately, yeah, I think this season, this team heading into this season, I think is really going to be the best shot that we have at accomplishing something early within the first contract, or I guess now second contract since we got extended. But after this, it's going to really be heavily reliant on the team that I've built through recruiting, and we already had a good year of recruiting, so we should only get better as a team. the national title thing should still be very much on the table, and making a bowl game should be very much on the table pretty much every year. If we miss a bowl game, it would be a humongous blunder on my end, coaching-wise. You could just blame Sick Naban for that shortcoming, for those pitfalls, a modern-day Kalen DeBoer, if you will. Is that already too soon? Is it too soon for Bama fans? I'm sorry. But anyway, yeah, regardless, we still do have a pretty, I guess, a good team around. You saw some of the higher numbers. Obviously, this outside linebacking group is really not that great. And there's some groups that are going to struggle. Like, I don't think the receiving core is really that strong now. We're going to have to give it a little bit to get better, which is part of the problem. So a lot of those first-year guys that we have, I think, are very good. And then a lot of the depth guys that I just recruited, they might be a good year or so off before they're really ready to, like, step in and be big contributors to this team. So, but number 12 is going to start things off for us at a 90 overall. We have a good backup as well, but he's probably going to leave. Our running back, we have a new one. Of course, fullback is returning. We have 2 new top receivers. Chris Kelly and Spears are going to lead the way for us. A lot of returning faces on the O-line. Our left guard is up to a 99, man. But we do have a solid O-line. The right side is a little bit weaker. It's really just that guard position that's pretty weak. On the defensive side of the ball, our ends are also pretty weak, but the defensive tackles are a little bit stronger. And again, as we talked, I am going to move around these linebackers a bit because we need to have a much stronger unit, a linebacking unit. If we're going to be running 3-4 and stuff like that, we need to have our best linebackers forward, if at all possible. And I'm going to move and shift some guys around and try and get that shake up here. I typically screw that up because I don't know how to sub the linebackers correctly, but this time I did. So we're still going to have a weak linebacker side, but I did make things a little bit better. Our DBs, our top 2 DBs are pretty good, but they are returning players. So, this is what I'm talking about. We have one more year with a lot of really solid guys, and then any recruits that we have, probably going to take some time for them, another year or two, for them to really kind of step up and develop into the players that I really need them to be. So the training results next season are going to be so crucial for this team, man. It's going to be really crucial to see a lot of these first-year recruits that I just got improve a lot. It's going to be very important to see that, so hopefully they do. Moving ahead now, we are officially technically in year number 2, and here is a look at our schedule. So yeah, a lot of ranked opponents. The conference schedule is not getting any easier. We come in ranked 23rd. Or at a conference, I'm trying to keep it close to what it was actually in the 2004 season for Bama. So they did play Utah State and Western Carolina. So I kept those. And then I think they also played Southern Miss, but I don't think Southern Miss was that good at the time. And then they didn't play at a conference game, so I just kept the Troy State game. That was already there. So that is how the schedule is going to roll. I don't have any shame in adding an FCS game because there's no way that we're going to come out unscathed of our conference schedule like we did last year. We got super lucky with a lot of those games last year, and I don't think we're going to do it again. So looking at the preseason polls here, Oklahoma is number 1, Ohio State number 2. I'm kind of flipping between both polls here. Just to kind of see where we're ranked at. And there you see we're going to flip over to the coaches poll. So Miami's 1, Ohio State 2, Oklahoma 2, Ohio State 3, Virginia Tech is 4, UCLA is 5, Georgia comes in at 6, Maryland at 7, Notre Dame 8, Texas is 9, USC is 10, Tennessee is at 11, Nebraska 12, Washington State, Michigan, and Arkansas round out the top 15. Ole Miss, another conference opponent just outside the top 15. Florida State, Colorado State, Oregon State, Kansas State round out the top 20, and then NC State, Wisconsin, us, and Washington, along with Southern Miss, round out the top 25. So you already saw there was a plethora of teams that are on our schedule that we're going to have to play that are currently ranked, and they probably will get ranked higher. Some, 1 or 2, might not be ranked at all, but we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So in the SEC, the outlook, we are projected to come in 5th. As you saw in our division, we were projected to be like 3rd, I think, in the West. So they're already pretty down on us. They don't expect us to be anywhere near as good as we were last season. They're projecting Arkansas to win our side. Very possible, but I don't know. If we get a lot of the luck that we had last season, then I don't see any reason why we can't go back to the SEC title game, but it's going to be a pretty lofty goal to have. Again, we got super lucky with the schedule that we had last season, and I know we're not going to get there. So I simmed through week 0, and the team did lose, so we moved up 1 spot into 22, and that's going to lead us into our first game of the season against the Utah State Aggies, who are currently ranked 102nd. So they're one of the worst teams in college football right now. So this should hopefully be a very easy win, a very easy tone-setting win for the Crimson Tide season here into year 2. So in the next video, we will, of course, cover that game at Bryant-Denny, our first game of the season. And I hope to see everybody there to root on the Crimson Tide in year number 2.